welcome Sharate Haridasan to inaugurate our Narayanam series. Welcome, sir.
I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can.
Narayana Khilaguru Bhagavan Namaste. Guruvayoorappa Sarveshwara. This is a very auspicious occasion as far as the 18 steps is concerned, not just being the auspicious Narayaneeyam day, because I think we are becoming a proper organization and we are getting into building a new form of Sanatana Dharma practice for householders worldwide. Not just in US now, there have been groups working towards the same goal in Australia, in Singapore, in UAE, and now a very small group in Europe also. So it has always been my objective that 18 steps should grow into an organization where we nurture talent rather than me speaking always and me being the face of it. I always wanted youngsters to come into the fore and then spread the knowledge of Sanatana Dharma as much as possible, adhering to Shastra based interpretations, not interpretations based on anybody's whims and fancies or adhering to any sort of bhakti movement kind of misinterpretations, which is highly prevalent these days. So, since we focus most of our lectures on Guruvayoorappan and how he views Sanatana Dharma through his teachings while he was walking on this earth, I thought having a session on any subject connected with Bhagavan will be ideal to open a new series of lectures. So I know Anand since some time. Like I remember meeting him in Trivandrum itself some years back during my discourse on Krishna and Krishna, like Lord Krishna and Krishna, who is Draupadi. And incidentally, it was organized at a temple where Bhima had installed a Krishna idol for Draupadi during their exile while they were in this part of the country. So that's where I met Anand first time. And then over the years, like we had been interacting and I had in my perspective, he has though he doesn't think so, I feel that, he can be a very good resource person. He can be a very good speaker. And definitely there are others also who will soon, I will make Hari also talk like this one day. I will make a couple of others also. So keep your fingers crossed. And so this is just a starting point. I'm very happy that, we are commencing this lecture series on the Narayaneeyam day itself. And we are placing our hearts literally at the opening threshold of Dashakam 1 of Narayaneeyam. What Bhattathiri offered us was not merely an invocation or anything. It was not just a stotra or something. Usually Narayaneeyam is called a stotram, where you praise the Lord. It is not just a stotram. It is actually a courageous confession. It is a confession of human limitation meeting divine compassion. Many of you must have heard my lecture series on Melpathur and Bhattathiri, which happened in Guruvayoor in 2025 May, I had tried to bring a different facet of Bhattathiri through that. And though I have not influenced the notes or interpretation style which Anand and Anju might bring forward in this lecture series, I have definitely told them, like, when they consulted me a couple of days back, there is a different kind of perspective we need to take to learn Narayaneeyam. Over the last 100 years, Narayaneeyam is one of the most misinterpreted texts. It has been reduced to just a devotional text. Compared, when we look at Bhattadhiri's genius, the genius he was, we are nowhere near what he actually meant. And he was such a, what can I say, he was a master in impregnating meanings with layers within layers within layers. So bringing at least one layer of it will be enough for householders like us to experience bliss. Bliss means feeling that we are Guruvayoorappan himself and nothing else. So Dashakam 1 reminds us that Narayaneeyam is not poetry composed for admiring Guruvayoorappan. Bhagavan doesn't need admiration. He cannot be bought by flowery words or anything. Bhattadhiri knew that very well. But in fact, it is a healing prayer born out of surrender. Not a healing prayer just for Bhattadhiri, but for the entire world for years to come, or eons to come. It is a prayer where our intellect bows down to grace and suffering, and our suffering transforms into spiritual clarity. Because all of us go through sufferings, all of us have a lot of personal pain. But if we succumb to that pain, we will be in that vortex of pain itself and vortex of suffering itself, and that cycle will continue unless we learn something from it, a spiritual lesson. So everybody should strive to learn a spiritual lesson from their sufferings. And that's when the suffering will become a boon, not a bane. Bhattadhiri did exactly that. His suffering was transformed into his spiritual clarity. By studying Narayaneeyam, our sufferings also will transform into spiritual clarity. Bhattadhiri starts with a theoretical idea of Bhagavan. He has learned a lot about Brahman, Advaita, Dvaita, all sorts of schools of philosophies. And he was a grammarian also and a mathematician. So he was a mathematician. Many people are not aware that he was an excellent mathematician. He belonged to the Kerala School of Mathematics, belonged to the same lineage of Nilakanta Swamiyaji and all. So his guru was also a great mathematician. I have detailed all that in that lecture. So he starts with the mindset of a scholar. A mindset of a scholar is that to show whatever they know about a subject. So similar way he starts off Narayaneeyam in that exact same pattern. He has some good ideas about what Brahman is. He has a very good idea of, how one should perceive Brahman. He has a very good idea of Brahma Sutras. He has a very good idea of all the authentic Advaitic texts and Dvaita texts of that time. Because Bhattadhiri's believes they jump between Advaita and Dvaita. It is a very dicey game. He is actually taking a very risky game all through the text. But towards the end, whatever he theoretically wrote in the beginning, he feels it. It becomes experience for him. In the starting word, of course, which Anand will explain, that word Sandranandava Bhavadatmakam, that first word he uses, that Sandranandava Bhavadatmakam, when he wrote that word, it was not experienced by him. He knew that it is dense Ananda, dense bliss or consciousness, but he never experienced it. But by the 100th day morning, he experienced it. And that's when he wrote Agre Pashyami. And then he concludes it by saying, Yogindranam Todangeshwadigo Sumadhuram Muktibhajam Nivaso Bhaktanam Kamavarshadhyudarugi Salayam Natha Te Padamulam Nityam Chittastidam Me Pavanapurapade Krishna Karunya Sindho Kritva Nisheshadhaval Pradishadu Paramananda Sandoha Lakshmi. That word Paramananda Sandoha Lakshmi is the summation of his experience. So he starts out in a theoretical style. He doesn't know anything. He has a bookish knowledge about Brahman. Whatever he has learned from other scholars and whatever he has learned from books, that's all he knew when he started out. But when he finished it, he knew that this is what it is. So Sandranandava Bhodatmakam becomes Paramananda Sandoha Lakshmi. This entire chain of Narayaneeyam, the garland of Narayaneeyam, is between this. Some years back, I had done a lecture series on 36 most important slokas of Narayaneeyam called Narayaneeya Ratnamala. It is still there in the 18 steps. There I had tried to make a garland of 36 slokas, starting from this to this, like that. So, in these opening verses, Bhagavan transcends time, space, and form as Brahman, but that same Bhagavan, he chooses to become near, accessible, and a deeply personal individual to the devotee. So, Dr. Anand Balu and Dr. Anjuvi Nair will be guiding us through this foundational Dashakam in the first ever lecture series by the 18 Steps USA since its legal inception. Let us listen not only with the mind of a student, but with the openness of a seeker. Sanatana Dharma teaches us not to be a believer, but to be a seeker. That's the most important lesson we should learn. We are all seekers. We are not believers of Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma doesn't want you to believe in anything. Dharma wants you to experience, to see. That's why he said finally, Agre Pashyami, I see in front of my eyes. That's what we should do. We should be doing. So, in that foundational Dashakam, as we approach, as we learn from them, we should have the openness of a seeker and allowing these first steps of Narayaneeyam to soften our ego, steady our intellect, and awaken the bhakti within us as a living, transformative presence in our lives. So with these words, I would like to conclude, and I wish Anand and Anita Anju a very productive session, and I really wish they make more and more lectures also in the future. Wish you all a great time learning the foundational first Dashakam of Narayaneeyam. Guruvayoorappan bless you all. Narayana Khila Guru Bhagavan Namaste. Guruvayoorappa Sharana. Jidesh, you can take over.
Now, I would like to invite Hari to give a brief introduction about our speakers and welcoming them to the session.
Narayana. I was just thinking about this moment. I was just looking at the agenda, and it said my self-introduction right after Sharatetan. And I was like, how can I follow up after Sharatetan talks? There's no way. Like every time he talks, it's like I don't know if it's for 2 minutes or 10 minutes or 1 hour or 2 hour, it feels like you're hitting a wall, right? It's a lot of information. So there's no way I can follow that up, but I'm really honored to introduce Anand and Anju to this event. A little introduction about them. Anand is from Thrissur, same place as I am, and Anju is from Toronto, right? They live in Melbourne, Florida. They have a 2-year daughter named Chinmayi Krishna. She's in the house, I'm guessing, I'm imagining right now. And um, um, Anand is a PhD holder in mechanical engineer, and Anju is a PhD holder in civil engineer. And Anju got her degree from Rutgers University in New Jersey, and Anand got his degree from Oklahoma University. Um, I just want to say that they are assistant professors at Florida Tech, and this is finals week. And just letting you guys know, they have to finish this Prabhashanam today, and they have to go back to grading papers for the rest of their students. So they're taking their time to do this for us, which means this means a lot to them, and they see the importance that all this information, how much is going to be passed down to us, right? But thank you so much. Thank you for doing this, and we are really blessed, and we are really looking forward to this. Narayana. Jinajaji, you can take over
Yeah.
the
Can you
next
see my
thing.
screen?
Yes, well, yes.
First of all, good afternoon, everyone joining. I would like to start by saying that we feel we're really blessed, both Anju and I. We feel really blessed to be able to, do this session. We think that it's because of God's grace and that we received this opportunity, and we would like to use this opportunity to learn Narayaneeyam. So before we start, we would like to say that both Anju and I, we are not experts of Narayaneeyam or Sanskrit. We are also learning, and in this process we hope to learn and also be able to share what we learned with everyone. With that, we are starting Dashaka 1 today, and I'll be using my slides. The way we will be doing this is we'll go through the slokas. Anju will be doing a recitation of the sloka, and then she will summarize it in Malayalam first. She will tell the meaning in Malayalam first. Then I will take up each of those slokas like in the Anvaya form, and for each sloka we will try to tell its meaning in English. And as we go through that each sloka, we will probably touch upon some of the concepts that are related to Sanatana Dharma, and also some of them related to Vedanta. As we go through the slokas. Again, as I said, we thank you for this opportunity. We thank Sharad sir for the guidance and support. I also thank the 18 Steps, Jidesh Chatan, and everyone here for the support that you have offered for us. Thank you. So before we start, I will start with a prayer and invocation so that this is a learning process, and let's start with that prayer. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Gajananam Bhutaganadisevidam Kapittajambufalasaravakshidam Umasudam Shogavinashakaranam Namami Vigneshwarapadapangajam. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Me Sada. Krishna Guruvayoorappa Sharanam. Narayana Guru Bhagavan Namaste. Guruvayoorappa. Let's take a moment to also pray to Sri Melpathur Narayana Bhattathiri, who composed Narayaneeyam. Let his divine guidance be with us as we learn Narayaneeyam. So before I start, we will give a quick introduction to Narayaneeyam. I'm sure we all have learned about Melpathur and his devotion, and we know the story behind his evolution. So, but we'll quickly touch upon some of those elements. So Narayaneeyam was composed by Sri Melpathur Narayana Bhattathiri in the 16th century AD. It is essentially a masterly condensation of the Bhagavata Purana. So Bhagavata has around 18,000 verses. The Narayaneeyam is a condensed version of the Bhagavata Purana. That 18,000 verses has been summarized into 1036 slokas or verses. And it is divided into 100 dashakas or cantos. Now, Bhattathiri was born in 1560 AD in Kerala. He was a highly acclaimed Vedic scholar. He was a resource person in Vedas. He was a Sanskrit scholar. As Sadasar said, he was a mathematician. He was a scholar of Shastras. He was a grammarian by training. And he was also a great devotee of Lord Sri Guruvayoorappan. His teacher was, one of his teachers, especially for grammar, was Trikandiur Achyuta Pisharadi. And Bhattathiri also married the niece of Achyuta Pisharadi. Now, even though he was a prodigy and a great scholar, Bhattathiri, at one phase of his life, after his marriage, he led a morally indifferent life. That means he kind of shifted away from the knowledge, the path of bhakti and knowledge that he had before. And Achyuta Pisharadi took opportunities to guide him and advise him to show him the correct path. But at all those times, he never thought of what his real purpose is. And there were at one specific day, when Achyuta Pisharadi was teaching his students, Bhattathiri, who was spending most of his time with his wife, and woke up very late in the morning, he comes out of the room in almost naked in his loincloth and crosses the study table. Achyuta Pisharadi was teaching them with the students, and Bhattathiri basically crossed them in that form he came in. And at that moment, Achyuta Pisharadi lamented to Bhattathiri, saying that you received such a great Brahmana Janma. That means you're gifted with this knowledge of Brahma, which you have, and see how you are wasting it. It is that moment that Bhattathiri realized that he is wasting his life, and he wanted to change himself. So it's like that. We all have probably gone through a phase of life where we may not be aware of our true purpose. And it might be at one specific moment that we get struck by a lightning that we should change ourselves. So it was that moment of realization for Bhattathiri. Further, what happened was Achyuta Pisharadi fell victim to a severe attack of paralysis, Vadarogam. And Bhattathiri took care of Achyuta Pisharadi. He was very fond of his teacher, and he took care of him. And at one stage, Bhattathiri took upon himself the ailment from Pisharadi. This was done through a process of prayers and chanting, and also a specific process called Chaya Danam, which Sharad Sir has described in detail in one of his lectures. So Bhattathiri took upon the ailment on himself, and he was basically paralyzed. He was not able to do anything properly. His life almost succumbed to the ailment, and he then sought refuge to Guruvayoorappan, and he sought blessings of the Lord to recover from this ailment. So he came to Guruvayur for that. And at that time, he also wanted to talk to Tunjat Ramanujan Ezhuthachan, who was a great devotee poet and who wrote Ramayanam in Malayalam. He reached out to Ezhuthachan through his fellow people who were helping Bhattathiri. And Ezhuthachan gave a colloquial answer as a remedy. He said, start with the fish as a touching. It meant, it's in Malayalam, it says, Meen Tottu Kootua. So the people who were sent, they did not understand the inner meaning behind it. But Bhattathiri, who was a realized soul, was able to understand what Ezhuthachan advised. That means to start writing the Dashavadara of Narayana, starting with the Avadara of the Malsya. So with that plan, Bhattathiri focused on writing the stories of Narayana, or the glories of the Lord. And he started off by writing 10 slokas each day. So he would complete 10 slokas each day. And as Sharad sir had said in one of his lectures, he was initially not able to enter the temple of Guruvayur. So he had his brother accompanying him to support him also. And he used to write 10 slokas each day, or compose 10 slokas each day. And he completed Narayaneeyam in 100 days. So the Dashakam 1 that he started on the first day is what we are starting today. And on the 100th day, Bhattathiri had the divine vision of the Lord. So due to his devotion and due to his surrender to the Lord, he was able to obtain the divine vision of the Lord in the form of a child. And through that, he was cured from his disease. So basically, this whole incident shows how Guruvayoorappan is, helping somebody transform into their real nature. Bhattathiri, the disease was a way for Guruvayoorappan to bring out Bhattathiri's devotion and the scholar in him, and put him on the right track. We know that Bhattathiri completed Narayaneeyam on 27th November 1587, as per the this is locked into one of his verses, and he completed Narayaneeyam at the age of 27. So with that introduction, we'll start trying to learn Narayaneeyam, starting with Dashakam 1. In the first Dashaka, the Bhattathiri talks about the Swarupa of Bhagavan and the Mahima of that Swarupa. So he's talking about Bhagavan Swarupa Mahima, and we'll start off with Dashaka 1. So today we have planned for the first 5 slokas of Dashaka 1. If time permits, we'll try to cover it, but if not, we'll try to catch up on that on the next session. So with that, we'll start Dashaka 1. I will request Anju to do a Parayanam of Dashaka 1 and then summarize the Malayalam meaning, and then we'll move forward.
Krishna Guruvayurappa Sharanam. Dashakam 1 Bhagavante Swarupavum Mahatmyavum. Sandranandavabodhatmakam anupamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashadasahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam drishtamatre punaha Urupurusharthatmagam brahmatattvam tattavat bhadi sakshat Guru Pavanapure Handa Bhagyam Janana. ഇടമുറിയാത്ത കനത്ത ആനന്ദവും ജ്ഞാനവുമാകുന്ന സ്വരൂപത്തോട് കൂടിയതും സദൃശമായി മറ്റൊന്നില്ലാത്തതും കാലത്തിന്റെ അവധിയിൽ നിന്നും ദേശത്തിന്റെ അവധിയിൽ നിന്നും തീരെ വേർപെട്ടതും സുഖദുഃഖാദികളുടെ സംബന്ധം മായാബന്ധം ഒട്ടുമില്ലാത്തതും അനേകം ശ്രുതിവാക്യങ്ങളാൽ നിശേഷം തികച്ചും വ്യക്തമാക്കപ്പെടുന്നതും എന്നാലും സ്പഷ്ടമല്ലാത്തതും പക്ഷേ ഒന്ന് കണ്ടാൽ തന്നെ അതൊരു വലിയ പുരുഷാർത്ഥമാകുന്നതുമായ ആ പ്രസിദ്ധമായ ബ്രഹ്മം എന്ന പരമാർത്ഥ വസ്തു ഗുരുവായൂരിൽ ഇപ്പോൾ പ്രത്യക്ഷമായി തന്നെ വിളങ്ങുന്നു. അഹോ ആളുകളുടെ ഭാഗ്യം.
So we start off with the first part of the sloka, starting off with Sandra Ananda Avabodhatmaka. So from the words itself, we have the words Sandra, Ananda, and Avabodham. Sandra means something that is intense and concentrated. So here Bhattathiri is referring to the form of the Lord and the true nature of the Lord, which is Guruvayoorappan, which is of the nature of intense, concentrated or condensed essence of pure bliss and supreme consciousness. Ananda is pure bliss, and Avabodhatmagam is the supreme consciousness, which is the true awareness. That is the awareness in us and the awareness in every form in the world. This awareness, this supreme consciousness, is referred by Vedantists as Brahman. We have different names for this, depending on the school of thought, but it is referred to as Brahman, which is the true nature of that consciousness. And Bhattathiri says that this true nature, this consciousness, its nature is that it is of pure bliss. It is Ananda. That is the Ananda that Bhattathiri experienced towards the end of Narayaneeyam that Sharasar mentioned earlier. So the nature of Guruvayoorappa is of intense, concentrated or condensed essence of pure bliss, Ananda, and it is the supreme consciousness, which is the Brahman. Now, in Bhagavata and in the Upanishads, Brahman is defined as Satyam, Jnanam, and Anandam, which means existence. Satyam means existence, which is the real and which is the truth, that is Satyam. Jnanam, which is consciousness, which is, as I said, the supreme consciousness, which enlivens in every being that we see around. And Anandam, which means infinitude, which is something we cannot measure. And Brahman is also defined as Ananda. So we already said that Guruvayoorappan's true nature is he is the Brahman, or in Malayalam we say Brahmam, and that is of Satyam, Jnanam, and Anandam. That means it is the truth, it is consciousness, and it is infinite, and it is of the nature of Ananda, which is pure bliss. That's why Brahman in Vedanta is defined as Satchidananda. Sat, Chit, and Ananda. That is what Brahman is. Next, we have Anupamidam. So we said Sandra Ananda Avabodhatmakam. Anupamidam, which means without comparison or parallel. That means there is nothing to compare this with. This is the only one. There is not a second thing. And this Brahman is the absolute reality. And that is the only thing that enlives everywhere. So there is no way we can compare it with anything else. So typically when we say incomparable, it typically means that something is far superior than other, right? Like we can say that this product is incomparable with another product. That means the first product is highly superior to the other, so that we cannot compare. But that's not the meaning that we should understand here. When here it says incomparable, it means that is the only one that is there. There is nothing else to compare. So this Brahman that Bhattathiri is referring to, which is the supreme consciousness, which has the nature of Ananda, pure bliss, that is the only thing that exists in the world, and there is not a second thing. And that's why there is in the Upanishad it says Prabanja Swarupam Brahmam. That means there is no universe that is different from the Brahman. So let's look at an example of this. So we can take up the example of ocean and waves. So if you see waves, they arise in the ocean, they rise and fall in the ocean. And when we look at the waves, we say that here is a wave coming, but in its real nature, it is the ocean, right? The true nature of ocean is it is of silence. You can see a deep ocean is full of silence. But however, the true nature of the wave is of speed and vigor, etc. But it is still the same ocean. Even though we understand it as a wave, it still is the same ocean, right? So just like that, whatever we see around is just an existence within the Brahman. Same way as the waves are same as the ocean, same way the Brahman is the universe and the universe is the Brahman. And we'll see that in more details in the next slokas, next verses. The next one is very important, and we'll take a couple of slides to explain this. And once I think if we understand some of the key aspects here, the rest of the slokas will be very easy for us to understand. So next is Kala Deshavadibhyam Nirmuktam. That means this Brahman that we just referred to, it is absolutely free from the limitations of time and space. That means, we are all living in this, within time and space, right? We have space limitations, we have time limitations in the way we operate in the world. But this Brahman is beyond that. It is absolutely free from the limitations of time and space. So this Brahman is basically free of space, time, effect, cause, name, and form. Space and time, I already said. Effect and cause means, everything that we see around, that you will know that there is a cause and an effect for it. It might be happening because of some cause, and due to that cause, there is an effect. But this Brahman is beyond that. It is absolutely free of any cause and effect. So we cannot imply a cause and effect for the Brahman. It doesn't have a name, it doesn't have a form. So it's nameless and formless. Now, when we say time, it means then and now, right? When we say time, it means that something happened then and there is something happening now. So there is two events happening at one point and there is another event happening at another point. That's what time is. When we say space, it means there and here, right? It happened there and something happened here. When we say form, we say that it was in that form earlier and now it's in this form, right? Which means all of these, time, space, and form, they are meant to change. They were one thing in the beginning, now they are a different thing. They are all part of a change, right? But this Brahman, since it's absolutely free of these, it is changeless. This Brahman remains as the changeless one and it observes the change. So whatever change is happening, the Brahman is observing this change, and only the changeless thing can actually observe the change, right? For example, let's say we are all traveling in a car, and all the people sitting in the car, they see the other person sitting in the car going in the same speed, right? So they don't think that they are changing. Their speed is the same because they are all traveling in the same car. So everyone in the same car is relatively to them, they are in the same at the same speed, so they don't see any difference. They are changeless. But however, for a person who is outside of the car, they will see the person, all those people speeding in the car, right? So for them there is a change. So only the changeless thing can observe the change. That means the Brahman, which is the changeless, observes the change that is happening around. And time, which we already addressed, time is an object of consciousness. So there is consciousness, the Brahman, and an object of this consciousness is time. So which again we'll address in one of the next slides. So just for us to remember here. So when we say change, it means that it's the death of a previous condition and the birth of a new condition. So change means something died and something else has begun, right? Since we already said Brahman is beyond that, it doesn't have death and it doesn't have a birth. So change means, for example, morning changes to evening, a person changes from a child to a youth, a bud changes to a flower. These are all examples of change. That means something, one form of it died and a new form of it has started, right? However, as Brahman is beyond that, it is not affected by this change. So as we said, this Brahman, the supreme consciousness, is never born or dying. All things are born. We are using him here just to address him, this consciousness, as Guruvayoorappan. We are using the term him, but as I said, there is no form or name for it, for this Brahman. All things are born in him, exist in this consciousness, and dissolve into this consciousness. And therefore, this Brahman is changeless. And this Brahman is the same in the past, present, and future. That's why it says Kala Deshavadibhyam. It is eternal with respect to time and space. So it is the same in the past, present, and future. And therefore it is Ajaha. That means it's unborn. That means there is no beginning to this Brahman. It is beginningless. It is also Nitya, which means it is eternal. It will be there like that forever. And it is Shashvataha, which means it's ever the same. It's birthless and deathless. That's why it's called, it's the most ancient. So Narayana, or the supreme consciousness, or Guruvayoorappa as we say, is the most ancient thing, which we cannot measure at all, right? And it's eternal. So continuing from here, on the same one, Kala Deshavadbhyam Nirmuktam, this Brahman, as I said, is changeless. So the changeless supreme consciousness, which is Brahman. Within this Brahman, the universe is born out of this Brahman. So there is this changeless Brahman. As I said before, there is a changeless can only observe the change. So the universe is born out of this Brahman. It is sustained by this Brahman. That means it exists in this same Brahman, and it finally dissolves into this Brahman. And there you see the change happening. So the change that we see in the universe, as we observe, we are born, we grow, we get old, and we die, right? So there is a process of we are being born out of the Brahman, we are sustained by the Brahman, and at the end we dissolve into the Brahman. So we change, but the consciousness within us, it's changeless, it's ever remaining. And again, this will be discussed again in the next slides. I already said the example of observing a car speeding by a person outside. The person who is observing, that's the observer, and what that is the Brahman here, and what that observed, which is the car which is speeding, that is the observed, right? So in this case, the observer is the Brahman, and what was observed is the universe which came out of the Brahman, sustained by the Brahman, and dissolves into the Brahman. So here is an example that we can use to explain this, which you might all know from Vedanta. There is a rope here, and let's say this rope was in the darkness, and somebody saw this rope, and they mistook it to be a snake. So its actual form is a rope, but we don't know that. We are the one observing, and let's say it's dark, so we assume or we think that it's a snake. So at that moment, snake is born. Even though there is no real snake, the snake is born out of that rope. And then let's say we are coming closer to that rope, that snake sustains. So we still think it's a snake because for us we are observing it to be a snake, but in reality it was always the rope. And as soon as we get near, we understand that it was not a snake, it was actually the rope. So at that moment, the snake disappears. It went back to the rope. It became the rope, right? But in the real sense, at all of those times, it was always the rope. There was never a snake, right? That is the same thing that is happening here. The Brahman, which is the supreme consciousness that pervades everywhere, and it is the ever-present being that is there. And the universe that I showed in the previous slide is born out of him, it is sustained by him, and it finally dissolves into him. And in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says, for the same example, there is rope, and and you observed it to be a snake, but in reality there is no rope, there is no snake, and it's only me everywhere. That's what Bhagavan Krishna says. So it is always the Brahman that pervades everywhere. Another example for that is our dream. So let's say when we dream, the dream happens within us. So in the dream, we might be let's say we are in a deep sleep state, and we dream of us, or we dream of us doing something in the dream. Let's say I'm playing something, or let's say I'm doing something to someone else, which is part of the dream. So in that dream, that is my reality. So when I'm dreaming, I don't know I'm dreaming. I'm assuming that that's my reality, where I'm doing some activity, right? But as soon as I wake up, the dream is gone. I don't see the dream anymore. For now, that dream which originated within me has dissolved into me. So it was always me. Whatever I saw in the dream was always me, right? Let's say I was playing with someone in my dream, that the person who was playing was also me. The person who was playing with me, that was also me, right? In that same way, Bhagavan is saying it's all Brahman, right? That's an example that we can use here. So to explain further, we should understand how this Brahman, or the supreme consciousness, operates through us in this world, right? So all beings in this universe, they are blessed, or they are given with a body, a mind, and an intellect. So this intellect is more coming from the human form, but let's say in a mineral body, let's say if you take any a rock or any minerals, right? They only have a body, they only have a form. When you bring it to the next level, when you bring it to the plant kingdom level, they have a body and they also have a mind, because plants can sense, they can sense temperature, they can sense, feelings, feel in the sense that, they if you touch a plant, it will understand it, right? So they have some form of sense, which is their mind. In the case of animal kingdom, they have a fully developed mind. So the mind for the plants are not as developed as in the animal kingdom. So when you come to the animal kingdom, they have a body and they have a mind, a fully developed mind, and they act by the impulses of the mind, right? The animals, if you see the animals around, they all act according to what their whims and fancies of their mind. However, humans, they are also blessed with another thing, which is the intellect. That means that capacity in humans to use their rational judgment and act upon a situation. That means even though our body and mind demands us something, we have another power, which is the intellect, that we can use to make a rational decision, right? So for a human form, we have the body, we have the mind, and we have the intellect, right? Which is called Sharira, Mana, Buddhi. Now, this body, mind, intellect, which is the BMI, that is for our body, our mind and intellect, which is what we are made up of, that interacts with this world, which is made up of objects, emotions, and thoughts. So the body perceives the objects of the world through the sense organs. So we have our sense organs, eyes, nose, tongue, right? We have the sense organs, the 5 sense organs. We use that to perceive the objects of the world. That's the body. The mind feels the emotions from the world, right? So the mind is basically, feeling the emotions that are happening around us, because of circumstances. We feel that through the mind. And the intellect experiences the thoughts. It's things, and it experiences the world through thoughts, right? Now, the way we are organized, our BMI, it operates in the world outside through this objects, emotions, and thoughts. That means the BMI is connected to the world through OET, objects, emotions, and thoughts. The body is the grosser part of it, and as we go towards the intellect, it's subtler. So body is the gross form of us, and the intellect is the subtle form of us. Okay. Now, so what we do is through using our body, mind, and intellect, we operate in the world and we seek happiness. We seek happiness in this world of objects, emotions, and thoughts. And as I said before, this body, this mind, and this intellect, that is subjected to change. So they change. So our body, grows and dies. Our mind changes. We feel one emotion at one point. We feel a different emotion at a different point. We may like a person now. We may dislike a person later. Our intellect changes. That means we have one philosophy at one time. At a later time, we have a different philosophy. So this BMI is subjected to change. This is, as I showed in the previous slide, this BMI is subjected to that change that we saw earlier. Similarly, we know that the objects around us change, the emotions around us change, the thoughts around us change, right? Our interaction with a person might change at a later stage, so the emotions have probably changed. The thoughts we had earlier were different to the thoughts we have now, so it changes. So we are seeking happiness through the BMI on objects, emotions, and thoughts, which are also subject to change. And therefore, we will never find true happiness in this kind of a relationship. Just like an example, this body, mind, and intellect, it will feel heat and cold at some point. It may feel pain and joy at some point. It may feel success at some point. It may feel failure at some points. And this is all because it is subjected to change, right? Now, what Bhattathiri is emphasizing here is, and something that we need to understand here is, this body, mind, intellect of ours needs to therefore connect to a real source of happiness instead of this changing form of happiness. Whatever you see here, they are temporary things, temporary happiness which will change, which is not something we can depend upon. So this body, mind, and intellect has to operate under another form, or we need to be aware of our true nature, which is the supreme consciousness, that is the ever present and the pure bliss that we addressed before, which is Guruvayoorappan. That's the point that I want to bring up here. So why are we operating this BMI, the body, mind, and intellect? Why are they operating under this OET? It's because of vasanas. There is not a proper English term for vasanas. Vasanas, we can say it says tendencies. These tendencies are in us from our previous births and from the activities that we have done even in this current birth. So if I, let's say, do a specific activity, that creates a vasana in me. Maybe I thought of something right now, that gets embedded into me as a vasana. It might be a vasana that might have embedded into me from my previous birth, and that continues in us. So we are all conditioned by these vasanas, which operate through our BMI, and we use those BMI and work in this world of objects, emotions, and thoughts, which are changing. So the goal here, to find the true happiness, we have to cross this barrier of the vasanas and go towards, or that means we have to go beyond this body, mind, and intellect. That means we have to cross the limitations of the body, cross the limitations of the mind, and cross the limitations of the intellect, and focus us on to the supreme consciousness, the true nature, our true nature, which is our self, which is defined as Brahman, which is also earlier defined as Satchidananda, which is pure bliss. So with this slide, I hope I was able to show how the supreme consciousness operates through us. So when one more thing I want to add here is, when we say I'm seeing something, like you see through the body, let's say the body, I'm observing something, right? I'm observing it through my eyes, right? My eyes are not seeing the object. My eyes are the device through which I am seeing the object, right? So that what is observing it actually, that is always the supreme consciousness. The supreme consciousness, the Brahman, that is what operating in the objects, emotions, and thoughts through the body, through our sense organs. So let's say I am, I'm looking at the moon through my eyes. My eyes are not seeing the moon. It is the supreme consciousness in me that is observing the moon through my eyes, right? Same way, it is the supreme consciousness that is operating through my mind into the emotions, through my intellect into the thoughts. However, we are not aware of the supreme consciousness, or the supreme consciousness within us, the Guruvayoorappan in us, is not aware of the Guruvayoorappan which is all around, the supreme consciousness all around. And that is the focus of Narayaneeyam, that is to make us aware, the Guruvayoorappan in us, to be aware of the Guruvayoorappan that is ever present. That's the goal in Narayaneeyam. So BMI is the equipment of experience. So these are our equipment that we use to experience something, and that experience happens to in the Brahman, right? That experience is happening in the Brahman through our equipment, which is body, mind, and intellect. And this OET is the world of experience. And this PFT, which is when you observe something, perceive something, we are a perceiver. When you feel something, we are the feeler. And when you think of thoughts, we are a thinker. And that is our ego, the individual. So the individual experiencer, that is the PFT. PFT is the individual experiencer, the ego in me, which is the Jiva. This Jiva is experiencing this world, which is the changing world, as the ego. However, and even though we are identified with this Jiva, in our true nature, we are this supreme consciousness. And that is what we want to realize. So that's the point here. So this is conditioned by time, as I said before, so it's subject to change. However, this supreme consciousness here is changeless. So I believe that was kind of clear, but we'll continue from here. So this same Kala Deshavadibhyam Nirmuktam, so we said already that it's absolutely free from the limitations of time and space. Here is another example of that. We can see the ocean, and the waves are born from the ocean. As I said before, it is sustained in the ocean and it dies in the ocean. So the waves are the change, right? As just like the example before, our body, mind, and intellect is changing. That's the waves which come and go. However, the ocean, which is the true nature of the wave, that is changeless. So just like our body, mind, and intellect changes, the supreme consciousness in us, that is the changeless one. Now, for understanding this, we should know what time is. Time is defined as the interval between events that takes place for me. That means, as I said before, we experience something. So it is the consciousness in me that is experiencing that thing, right? So time is experienced by the consciousness. So time is an object of the consciousness. And therefore, when you say time, it is the interval between events. That means I experience one thing now, and that is my time equal to 0. And I experience something later, that is my time equal to the next time. So the interval between that is my time. In reality, there is no time. So the Brahman experiences something at one point, and it experiences something else at another point. That interval is what we define as time. So when you think of deep sleep, when we are having deep sleep, we are not, we are not looking at the time. There is no time there, right? We go for sleep at, let's say, 10 p.m. and have a deep sleep and wake up at 6 a.m. At that time period, we were not aware of the time. So there was no time at that point, right? So same way, we are, the point that we want to say here is, what is therefore the time of this Brahman? Can we say what is? So we said we experience time, and when we experience, when we experience something, that's when time is born, right? So what would be the time of the Brahman? So to understand that, let's look at something. Let's say we have a point A and a point B, and it's at a distance of 5 meters from each other. And let's say we are moving from A to B. Now, if you move from A to B, that we are going from one point to the other, the distance is 5 meters. What about the distance at A? Let's say you are at A, what is the distance? The distance is basically 0, right? If you are at A, your distance is 0. So what would be the time of, what would be the time for this Brahman? So let's try to think of that. We can say, we already said this Brahman is, ever present. It has been there since eternal, right? So if we say some time period for it, let's say if we say it's 2 billion years, I'm just giving an example. Within that, we can say, okay, it is the first year. Within that first year, I can say it is the first month within that year. Then within the first month, I can say it is the first day of that month. Within that first day, I can say it is the first hour. And within the first hour, there are again 60 seconds, right? Within the 60 minutes. And within the 60 minutes, I can say again 60 seconds, right? So this time, we can never find what that starting point is. So this Brahman, from this Brahman, the first thought came. That is time equal to 0. So when the Brahman experienced the first thought, that is our time equal to 0. That's our experience. That is when I'm experiencing something. And when the next thought came, that is my next event. So we have the first event, that is the first thought. And then I have my second event, that is after some time. The interval between that is time, right? Now, what would be therefore the time of the Brahman? It should be before that first thought, right? It should be because that thought came from the Brahman. So it should be before that first thought. So this Brahman is therefore beyond that time. It cannot be within the time that we are looking at. So it is beyond that time. So this Narayana, the consciousness that we are talking about, is therefore the most ancient. And it is beyond the time. That's why it says Kala Deshavadibhyam Nirmuktam. And therefore it's called Sanadana. Sanadana means something that is most ancient, that is unborn, that is eternal, which is timeless, and that is something that is birthless and deathless, which means it's changeless, right? So now, next Bhattathiri says it is Nitya Muktam, that is, it is always free from the control of Maya. So what is Maya? Maya is the power of this Brahman, right? And that is called the unmanifest Prakriti. So as I said before, the Brahman is changeless, right? This Brahman, with its power, creates Maya, right? And the Brahman plus Maya is what we see as the universe. The universe that is changing, that is born out of the Brahman, and that is changing, and that is sustained by the Brahman, and that goes into the Brahman. That is a result of the Maya, which is the power of the Brahman. And the Brahman, when it combines its Maya, that is called Ishvara. So Ishvara is that Brahman with a portion of a Maya, right? And this Ishvara is the ruler and controller of this universe. So Brahman, which is a supreme consciousness, changeless, it takes in a portion of Maya, Prakriti, to form Ishvara, which rules and controls the changeless, the universe that we see, which is subjected to change. So Nitya Muktam means this Brahman is beyond this Maya. The Maya is a power of the Brahman. The Brahman is not controlled by this Maya. It is the power of the Brahman that is shown around as Maya. Next is Nigama Shada Sahasrena, which means in spite of being explained by innumerable statements in the Upanishads, Srudivakyas, Vedas, and other texts, this Brahman cannot be captured or understood fully. Why? You can think of it. Because all these texts, the Upanishads, Vedas, and everything, we are trying to understand them through our body, mind, and intellect, right? All these, whatever has been written, and the innumerable statements, hundreds and thousands of statements, which is why it's called Shada Sahasrena, we are trying to understand them through our body and mind and intellect, or basically our mind and intellect, which are actually defective. I already said earlier, they are subjected to change, they are defective. So with a defective equipment, we will never be able to fully measure the complete. We are trying to measure something that is complete with our defective mind and intellect. Therefore, even though it's explained so much in many of these texts, we cannot fully understand this Brahman. So it's beyond the reach of sense organs, mind, and intellect. So it basically means study of the text alone will not be sufficient to know this Brahman. And next is aspashtam. That means it is not clear, not easy to be captured. So it is this Brahman which Bhattathiri is addressing is aspashtam. That means it is not spashtam. That means it's not easy to be understood, not easy to be captured with our defective minds. And therefore, as Sharad Sir said before, since we cannot capture it or understand it with our defective minds, the only way is for us to experience it. The example for that is writing essay on, if somebody asks you what is the sweetness of sugar, which Sharad Sir always mentions in his lectures, we can write essays about the sweetness of sugar, which will never be able to capture what the sweetness of sugar actually is, but we can also put it into our mouth and experience it. So same way, even though you write a lot about this Brahman, we will never be able to still know it. We have to experience it. That's what it says, Nigama Shada Sahasrena, it's aspashtam. And drishta matre punaha, that means at that moment when you realize that we are this Brahman, and that moment of realization, right? That means ourself, what the consciousness in us is the consciousness everywhere. The life in us is the life everywhere. At that moment, drishta matre punaha, but then immediately on realization that, that is, we are that Brahman, that becomes our highest purushartha. That means that is the point of moksha or liberation. So, drishta matre punaha uru purusharthatmagam. This realization of Brahman, the supreme consciousness as our own self, realizing that the Guruvayoorappan that is enlivening everywhere is the Guruvayoorappan in us, our own consciousness. That is the highest purushartha. That is the highest moksha. And it's also a fine line that we need to understand. If I say I attained moksha, that also means that I have not really understood it. So this also needs to end. This let's say somebody says I attained moksha in that moment. That also needs to end for true realization to happen. So that's something that Bhattathiri is addressing here. Now, Brahma Tattvam Tat Tavat. This Brahman that we spoke about, which is the Nirguna, Nirupama, Nirvigaram. So it is Nirguna, that means it doesn't have any gunas, it doesn't have any Rupam, and it doesn't have any Vigaras, Nirvigaram. This very reality, this supreme consciousness, as I said, Brahma Tattvam Tat Tavat, Bhadi Sakshat Guru Pavanapure. That means this Brahman, this supreme consciousness, shines right in front of us as the Chaitanya of Guruvayoorappan. That means Bhattathiri is saying that the Guruvayoorappan that he is seeing at Guruvayur, the Chaitanya of that Guruvayoorappan, is the supreme consciousness. Here we need to understand that when Bhattathiri is addressing Guruvayoorappan, here Guru means the Brahman, as I said, the supreme consciousness Brahman. Vayu or Pavana or Vayu means the prana of the universe. That means the prana in us, the life in us, which is the cosmic energy, which is the life everywhere. The life in us is the life everywhere. So Guru is that Brahman, prana or Vayu is the prana of the universe, and Puram is the place that they reside, which is, as I said before, our own self. Right? In our shariram, in our own self is where this Guruvayoorappan is residing. So Guruvayoorappan, the Brahman, the absolute reality, resides in us, and also Bhattathiri, as his devotion to Guruvayoorappan, it is also as a symbol or as a gateway at Guruvayur. So you can seek him at Guruvayur, but you should also seek him within you, in you. This Guruvayur is our own shariram, our own self. Handa Bhagyam Jananam, which says, oh, what good fortunate for the people. How blessed we all are because we can experience this supreme consciousness at Guruvayur, right? And also in us as our own self. So how lucky we all are that this Brahman, our Guruvayurappan, residing in the Guruvayupuram, which is Guruvayur, and also our own self, how lucky we all are. Now the term Handa in Sanskrit technically means alas, like it is like a despair. So there is an inner meaning for this Handa, which means even though this Guruvayurappan is in us, are we really aware of this luck? Are we living a life with that awareness? So Bhattathiri is asking us this question. Are we really fully aware of this luck that this Guruvayurappan is in us and us? That is something we need to understand from Handa Bhagyam Janana. So with that, we complete the first sloka of Narayaneeyam. Now we will try to go to the next one, second sloka. So before I go to the second sloka, we need to also address Guruvayurappan, our beloved Guruvayurappan, Ponnu Guruvayurappan, and the idol, because in the next slokas, Bhattathiri is talking about the idol of Guruvayurappan also. So, and before moving, we need to understand from this sloka that we need to connect to the idol at Guruvayur with bhakti. So with bhakti, we connect to that idol. So that idol, right now we all are in that state. We are all connected to the idol at Guruvayur through bhakti, with bhakti. But the true bhakti is that using that connection to that Guruvayurappan to connect to our own inner self and revel in that true bhakti, in that true consciousness. That is true bhakti. So Bhattathiri's Handa refers to this point, that we need to connect to the Guruvayurappan at Guruvayur temple and then use that bhakti to connect to the Guruvayurappan in us, and which is also the Guruvayurappan that is pervading everywhere, right? That is true bhakti. So before moving to sloka 2, let's quickly go over the Mahima of the idol at Guruvayur. This is something that everyone knows, but we'll just address it. The idol at Guruvayur, we know that this was worshipped by Vishnu. The idol of Guruvayurappan was given to Brahmadeva by Vishnu for doing the activity of creation. Brahma then gave this idol to Prishni and Sudaba. They were praying for a child, and Brahmadeva gave the idol to Prishni and Sudaba to pray to the idol to Guruvayurappan to bless them for a child. And Prishni and Sudaba installs the idol and prays to the idol, and to them Guruvayurappan manifested in front of them. And with excitement, they asked Guruvayurappan for a son. They asked for a son just like Guruvayurappan 3 times. And Bhagavan said, since there cannot be somebody else that is same as me, so since there is no Brahman that is different to the existing Brahman, there is not a second, there is only one, I myself will be born to you as your child. And since Prishni and Sudaba asked for it 3 times, on excitement they asked for it 3 times, Bhagavan blessed to them that in 3 of their lifetimes, I will be born to them as their son. So for Prishni and Sudaba, they gave birth to Prishni Garbha, who was a great sage and great sage. This is the same Prishni Garbha who manifested in front of Dhruva to bless him with his divine vision. So in the next lifetime, Sudaba and Prishni, they were born as Aditi and Kashyapa. Aditi and Kashyapa also prayed to this idol, and to them was born Lord Vamana to bless and humble the Asura king Bali. And in their next lifetime, Sudaba and Prishni, they were born as Devaki and Vasudeva. They received the idol of Guruvayurappan from sage Daumaya, and they also pray to the idol to blessing and asking for a child. And Guruvayurappan manifests before them, and that is the birth of Sri Krishna, right? Our Ponnu Guruvayurappan manifests in front of Devaki and Vasudeva, and that form, that manifested form, which is the Chadurbahu form, that is the form of the idol of Guruvayurappan that we see at Guruvayur, which is with Shanga, Chakra, Gada and Padma. And to them was born Sri Krishna. Now, Sri Krishna then, after destructing the ego of Kamsa, Sri Krishna also worshipped the idol. He takes the idol to Dwaraka later, and before ascending to Vaikunta, Sri Krishna instructs Uddhava about the idol, about his departure, and he instructs Uddhava to, carry this idol or recover this idol from the ocean when Dwaraka is, going to die, and then instructs him to meet Guru Brihaspati to place the idol at a sacred location. So Guru and Vayu, Guru, Brihaspati and Vayu, with the help of Varuna, identify or recover the floating idol of Guruvayurappan after Dwaraka was submerged in ocean. And they travel across India to place this idol at a sacred place. And finally, they reach to Kerala, and they see a large pond filled with lotuses. And from that large pond comes Shiva and Parvati, who were having a penance there. And Lord Shiva and Parvati were at the shores of Rudra Tirtha, which is the pond, the Tirtha that we have next to Guruvayur, with Rudra Tirtha. This is where Shiva advised the Prajadas, sons of Prajina Barhas, and Shiva and Parvati instructs Uddhava and Brihaspati to place the idol in this sacred location at Guruvayur. And when they try to place the idol, they see that that location was already occupied by Bhagavati, which is the Edatharikathagav Bhagavati. And the goddess, who was already expecting the Lord's arrival, welcomed the Lord and moved to seat herself beneath a nearby tree. So that is why she is called Edatharikathagav Bhagavati. And she assumes the sister role of the Lord. So Guru and Vayu consecrates the idol at the shores of Rudra Tirtham with the blessings of Lord Shiva, and the idol of Sri Guruvayoorappan, which is the pure consciousness, as I said before, which is a consciousness in us, is installed at Guruvayur. And that's our Guruvayoorappan, who is ever blessing us. Okay. So with that, we end the first sloga of Narayaneeyam, and we'll start with the second sloga.
एवं दुर्लभ्य वस्तुन्यपि सुलभतया हस्तलब्धे यदन्यत्तन्वा वाचा धिया वा भजति बद जनक्षुद्रतैव स्फुटेयम् एते तावद्वयं तु स्थिरतरमनसा विश्वपीडापहत्यै निःशेषात्मानमेनं ഗുരുപവനപുരാധീശമേവാശ്രയാമഹ. ഈ ബ്രഹ്മം ദുർലഭമായ ഒരു വസ്തുവാണെങ്കിലും ഇങ്ങനെ സുലഭമായിട്ട് കയ്യിൽ കിട്ടിയിരിക്കെ ആളുകൾ വേറെ വല്ലതിനെയും ശരീരം കൊണ്ടോ വാക്കുകൊണ്ടോ ബുദ്ധി കൊണ്ടോ കഷ്ടമേ ആശ്രയിക്കുന്നു എന്നത് സ്പഷ്ടമായ കൊള്ളരുതായ്മ തന്നെയാകുന്നു. ഈ നാമമാകട്ടെ ഇപ്പോൾ മനസ്ഥൈര്യത്തോടെ സമസ്ത പീഡകളുടെയും അറുതിക്കായി സർവാത്മാവായ ഈ ഗുരുവായൂരപ്പനെ തന്നെ ആശ്രയിച്ചു കൊള്ളുന്നു.
So we start the second sloga with Evam, that is this supreme being, the supreme consciousness, the Guruvayoorappan, which was already described in the first sloga in the manner described above, which is the living presence of the Lord within us. And as I said before, that Guruvayoorappan is in us, therefore it is easily accessible for us. So that's why it says Evam Durlabhya Vastunnabi. That means it's a thing which is very difficult to get. So Bhattathiri is making the point that Guruvayoorappan, which is the living presence of the Lord, which is easy to reach for us at Guruvayur and in us, it is technically a thing that is very difficult to obtain or realize. Okay, so this we already said in the first sloga that Guruvayoorappan is in us and as the Chaitanya at Guruvayur. But Bhattathiri is now saying that it is, even though it is easy for us to reach this Guruvayur or obtain it, but technically it is not that straightforward. It is very difficult to obtain or realize this. So as per yoga, to achieve this Brahman, we carry out several practices, starting off with Yama. Yama is the practice of ethics, Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Abarigraha. We do Niyama, which is Sauja, Sandosha, Tabas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, Pranidhana. We do Asana, which are the postures, the yoga postures. We have to do Pranayama, which is mindful breathing. So these are all different ways to realize this Brahman. We can take these different steps or different paths to realize this Brahman. We can do Pratyahara, which is turning inward. We can do Dharana, which is focusing on something with concentration. When you focus on something, at that moment, your mind is no more, you are fully putting your mind into at one specific point, and you go beyond the mind. So Dharana is that process of focusing. Dhyana, which is deconcentration. Once you focus on one thing, so you can do Dharana, which is you can focus on, let's say, Guruvayoorappan's body, the form of Guruvayoorappan, that is concentration. After a point, you have to cross that. So that is Dhyana, where you deconcentrate, which is the state of meditation. And then finally, you have Samadhi, which is that pure bliss, where you are in harmony with the self. So we have to practice all this to achieve this Brahman. So that therefore it is very difficult. It is not that easy to get this Brahman. However, even though it is so difficult, Bhattathiri is saying it is Sulabhadaya. That means it is so easily in the form of Guruvayoorappan, as said in the first sloga. In the form of Guruvayoorappan, this is available in us and at Guruvayur also. So Guruvayur, as I said before, the temple and the idol, it is that same Guruvayur is also in us, and it's also so easy for us to obtain that Guruvayoorappan in us. Hasta labde, in spite of being available close to grasp by hand. That means since this Guruvayoorappan is in us, as I said, through our body, mind and intellect, we have to cross this limitations of the body, cross the limitations of the mind and the intellect, and go towards the supreme consciousness. And which since this Guruvayoorappan is in us, we should be able to do it. But in spite of being available close to grasp by hands, yet anyat, we the people, we depend on other things. We depend on other worldly pleasures. We depend on different philosophies. We depend on other objects. We depend on thoughts and emotions. As I said, using our body, mind and intellect, we are dependent on the objects, emotions and thoughts, which are all changing. So we are dependent on things that are changing rather than the supreme being, which is the changeless. We are not. So that is what Bhattathiri is criticizing here. So even though this Guruvayoorappan is in us and we can easily access this Guruvayoorappan, we are spending our time. We are conditioning our body and mind and intellect onto other worldly pleasures, right? Tanva vaja diyava, with their body, speech, mind and intellect, we try to pursue other worldly object, and that means we try to worship people. We pursue certain things. We may be worshipping a certain ideology. We might be dependent on some people or some kind of behavior. So we may have addictions. So even though this Guruvayoorappan is so easily accessible to us, we are actually focused on other things. So Bhattathiri is saying, alas, he's saying that we are actually destroying this life by not pursuing this Guruvayoorappan, which is so easily available to us. Next one is Shudra eva spuda iyam. That means Shudrada eva spuda iyam. That means that pursuit is clearly lamentable. So this kind of a pursuit where we go behind this worldly pleasure, that is clearly lamentable, that is pitiable, and we are carrying out without viveka. Ede tavat vayam tu. And now Bhattathiri is saying, but we here, the devotees of the Lord. So now Bhattathiri is shifting to people who are, trying to realize this Guruvayoorappan. But we here, the devotees of the Lord, through our karma, bhakti and jnana. So through karma, through bhakti and jnana, we, with a firmly resolved and focused mind, stiradara manasa, with a mind that is firmly resolved, that means we have put full focus onto Guruvayoorappan. Vishwa pida abhahatyai, the eradication of all suffering in this material and spiritual realm of this universe. So again, I will summarize it after I say the line by line meaning. So the devotees of the Lord, through karma, bhakti and jnana, focuses our body, mind, and intellect onto this Guruvayurappan, right? To eradicate us from this suffering of the material and spiritual realm. Okay. Nishesha Atmanamenam. Nishesha Atmanamenam. This Lord, which is the Guruvayurappan, whose form, nature is same as this entire universe. It can be also interpreted that who is the soul of all beings. So we already said this in the previous sloga. So he's emphasizing that Guruvayurappan is the soul of all beings in the universe. That is the universal consciousness, Guruvayu, right? Nishesha Atmanamenam Guru Pavana Puradisham, to that Lord of Guruvayur, to that Guruvayurappan, who is the life in us and the life everywhere, and the image. So Bhattathiri is also associating that supreme consciousness to the idol at Guruvayur. So it is both the idol at Guruvayur, because we need to have that bhakti to realize the Guruvayurappan in us. So the Guru Pavana Puradisham, to that Lord of Guruvayur, who is the life in us, life everywhere, and the idol at Guruvayur, Evasrayamaha. That means to that Guruvayurappan alone we surrender, or I surrender. Okay, this we can associate with one of the I want to connect this to one of my favorite lectures of Sharat Sir, which is Guruvayurappan and Nirandara Smarana. So here Bhattathiri is saying to that Guruvayurappan we have to be Asrayama. That means we have to fully surrender to that Guruvayurappan, and to do that there are 6 qualities to develop, which includes Shama, that means inner tranquility of the mind, calming our mind. Dhamma, which is controlling our senses. As I said, the body, through the sense organs, it operates on the object. So we have to control the impulses of the body, which means we have to control the mind. The mind has to be our servant. The body has to be the servant of the mind. The mind has to be controlled by our intellect, and through that intellect has to be then connected to the supreme consciousness. So Dhamma, which is control over senses. Ubaradi, that is doing something with enthusiasm, awareness, without addiction, that's called Ubaradi. Tidiksha, which is maintaining balance and be able to bear undesirable situations. So in life we have good and bad situations. So maintaining our posture and balance in all those situations, that's called Tidiksha. Shraddha is a strong faith or adoration to our Guru, our Shastras, and ourself. That means a strong faith and adoration to Guruvayurappan, that is called Shraddha. And Samadhanam means our mind focused on and surrendered to this Guruvayurappan, our own self. So these 6 qualities, if you develop, that is a way to surrender to this, to our Guruvayurappan, right? So here Bhattathiri is saying that this is bhaktas, through our karma, bhakti, and jnana, we have to surrender to that Guruvayurappan. And in Bhagavatam, bhakti, we have to. In Bhagavatam is a form of bhakti, right? Bhagavatam is Guruvayurappan himself, and and Narayaneeyam is a condensation of Bhagavatam. It says you have to serve your body. You can serve your body you can serve Bhagavan through your body. That means through service. You can serve your mind to Bhagavan. That means you are remembering Bhagavan's nama in your mind. That is serving the Bhagavan. And we can keep our intellect always focused on the Rubam of Bhagavan. That is keeping the intellect focused on Bhagavan. These are different ways in which we can surrender to this Supreme Being. Now we'll start Sloka 3.
Sattvam yattatparabhyam avarikalanato nirmalam tena tavad bhudendriyaiste vabudidi bahusha shruyate vyasavakyam tatsvachatvat yadachadidaparasu garbha nirbhasarupam tasmin dhanyaramande Shrudimadi madhure sugrahe vigrahete. അതിൽ നിന്ന് ഭക്ഷ്യമാണമായ സത്വത്തിൽ നിന്ന് അന്യങ്ങളായവയോട്, അതായത് രജസിനോടും തമസിനോടും പരികലനം അഥവാ സമ്പർക്കം ഇല്ലായ്കയാൽ ശുദ്ധമായ യാതൊരു സത്വഗുണമുണ്ടോ? അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ഉണ്ടായ ഭൂതങ്ങളെ കൊണ്ടും ഇന്ദ്രിയങ്ങളെ കൊണ്ടുമാകുന്നു അങ്ങയുടെ ശരീരമെന്ന് വ്യാസഭഗവാൻ പല ഗുരു പറഞ്ഞതായി കേൾക്കുന്നു. ആ നൈർമല്യം ഹേതുവായിട്ടും യാതൊരു വപുസ് മറവില്ലാതെ ഉത്കൃഷ്ടമായ സുഖമായും പ്രകാശമായും ഉള്ളിൽ നന്നായി വിളങ്ങുന്ന രൂപമുള്ളതാകുന്നുവോ കേൾപ്പാനും സ്മരിപ്പാനും രസം തോന്നിക്കുന്നതും സുഖേന ഗ്രഹിക്കാവുന്നതുമായ അങ്ങയുടെ ആ വിഗ്രഹത്തിങ്കൽ വപുസിങ്കൽ ഭാഗ്യശാലികളായ ജനങ്ങൾ രമിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നു.
So we start Sloka 3, starting with Sattvam Yat Tat. So we are now addressing that Guruvayoorappan, the nature of that Guruvayoorappan. This supreme conscious, the Brahman, that is Guruvayoorappan, it is of pure Sattva Guna. He is beyond the Guna, but here Bhattathiri is saying that it is a specific form of the Guruvayoorappan. He is saying it is pure Sattva. And what is the Sattva will come in the next slides. Parabhyam Abari Kalanada means it is not being mixed with the other two. So we have Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. These are the three gunas. All the living forms and all the experiences that we have, they are all can be classified into Sattva, Rajas and Tamas in the universe. And we need Sattva, we need Rajas and Tamas to operate in this world. So as human beings, as this finite beings, we need all the three. We need Sattva, Rajas and Tamas to operate in the daily world. But this Guruvayoorappan, he is made up of that pure Sattva Guna. And there is no filtration of any Rajas or Tamas in him. So what for us as the finite beings, this Sattva, Rajas and Tamas operate in us through our body, mind and intellect. So we are identified with the body, with the mind and intellect through Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So our goal should be to realize this Guruvayoorappan. We need to be able to work with Rajas and Tamas, but to realize, because we have to still fulfill our daily activities, but to realize the Guruvayoorappan in us, we have to focus ourselves towards that Sattva Guna. So the body, mind and intellect has to be focused towards that Sattva Guna. And because that Guruvayoorappan is made up of that pure Sattva. Now, Bhattathiri says that Guruvayoorappan, which is of pure Sattva, is Nirmalam, that is, it's absolutely pure. It's free from taint, free from any taint of Rajas and Tamas. That is why it's Nirmalam, absolutely pure. Tena Tavat Budaihi, right? Which means which have come from that Sattva Guna. So this Guruvayoorappan has come from this Sattva Guna. It is originated from that Sattva. So within Sattva, this Guruvayoorappan is basically Shuddha Sattva. That means Sattva. So within Sattva we have pure Sattva. That is called Shuddha Sattva. That means it is the most purest form of Sattva. And that is called Sattva. And this Guruvayoorappan is basically that pure Sattva. And that Sattva is at the level of the consciousness. So the form of, and Bhattathiri is now connecting that Shuddha Sattva to the idol at Guruvayoor and the being, the consciousness in us. The consciousness in us is that Shuddha Sattva, and the idol at Guruvayoor is also made of this Shuddha Sattva. Because through that bhakti only we can realize the true one in us. Budhendriyahi, which means this Shuddha Sattva is constituted of the subtle elements of the Panchabhutas and the Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas. So, Bhattathiri is now addressing the idol, the idol at Guruvayoorappan, and the form of Guruvayoorappan, which is Vishnu. He's now specifically addressing the form of Guruvayoorappan, which is the form of Vishnu, which the form of Vishnu is of Shuddha Sattva. Vishnu is basically the Shuddha Sattva, the pure Sattva, and that is the same consciousness in Guruvayoor, the idol of Guruvayoor, and that is constituted of that pure Sattva and the subtle elements of Panchabhutas and the Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas. Te Vabuhu, that form is constituted, and that form is the form of Vishnu, the idol at Guruvayoor, which is our own self, as said in the first sloka. Idi Bahusha Sruyade, thus is repeatedly heard by the sages. So Vyasa Vakyam. So sage Vyasa has repeatedly emphasized that the form of Vishnu is of Shuddha Sattva, and that is our inner self, the supreme being. Tat Swachad Tat swachtavat, that form, because of its purity, that form is pure sattva. Yad achadida parasuga chidgarbha nirbhasa rubam. That form, therefore, is supremely attractive and ever shining. So Bhattathiri is saying that form of Guruvayoorappan, which is of pure sattva, which is the form of Vishnu, it is supremely attractive and ever shining. It is shining because of the presence of that Shuddha sattva, and it is unobstructed by anything. It is unobstructed by rajas or tamas, and it's therefore supreme bliss and consciousness. That is same as the Sandranandava Bodhatmangam, which we started off in the beginning, which is the Brahman. So here Bhattathiri is emphasizing that the form of Guruvayoorappan, of Shuddha Sattva, which is the form of Vishnu, is ever shining because it is full of Shuddha Sattva, and it is unobstructed by Rajas and Tamas, and it is therefore supreme bliss and consciousness. Tasmin Danya Ramande, in that form the fortunate ones. So people who are blessed, they revel in that form. People who have punya in their balance, who may have punya from their past lives, will have the opportunity to focus their mind, body, mind, and intellect onto that Shuddha Sattva, onto that Guruvayoorappan. So in that form, the fortunate ones who have good deeds in their credit, punya, they revel in that Guruvayoorappan. Shrudi Madi Madhure. Now this form is delightful to the ears and mind. So we can, that form of that Guruvayoorappan of Shuddha Sattva, it is delightful for us to hear about him, to learn about him in our mind, right? So it's Shrudi Madi Madhure. Sugrahe Vigrahete. Devotees therefore can easily attain or grasp this image of our Guruvayoorappan. So here Bhattathiri is saying that at the idol at Guruvayur, devotees can easily therefore grasp this Shuddha Sattva, which is your image that you see at Guruvayur. And also we emphasize that is the same Guruvayoorappan in us. So the form of Vishnu is of pure Sattva Guna. I'll just end with this sloga 3 today because we are close to 1. But we'll just quickly discuss what is the form of Vishnu, which is of pure Sattva Guna. So as I said before, the gunas, there are three gunas. Sattva, which is true knowledge, true happiness. The nature of Sattva is true knowledge, true happiness, clarity, transparency, awareness. That is Sattva. So when we focus ourselves towards Sattva, that is what we are seeking for. Rajas includes action, activity, desire, and it results in attachment. Now we need Rajas because we need to do action in our daily life, right? So we still need Rajas, but to realize that Guruvayoorappan, we have to go beyond this Rajas to Sattva, which is to stay focused on that form of Vishnu, and then we have to go beyond that Sattva Guna to be with that infinite being. That's the point here. And Tamas is the form of inertia, ignorance, delusion, which is laziness, dullness, and sleep. So these are the three gunas that we see in any form, any being that we have. And as I said before, Bhagavan is beyond that. But the form of Bhagavan, which is Vishnu, is coming out of the pure Sattva, Shuddha Sattva. So Vishnu is Shuddha Sattva. And now, from this Shuddha Sattva of Vishnu is born Sri Krishna. So Bhagavan Krishna, which we call as Purnavadaram, is from that Shuddha Sattva of Vishnu. So Bhagavan Krishna is also of the nature of Shuddha Sattva. Therefore, that's why we call Bhagavan Krishna as Purnavadaram, because it is embodying everything that is Vishnu. And therefore, Bhagavan Krishna is also the same as pure bliss, the supreme consciousness, and Brahman. And Bhattathiri is now associating that Krishna, that Purnavadaram, which is of Shuddha Sattva, to the idol at Guruvayur. And what he is emphasizing here is that blessed people who are blessed due to punya from their previous life, through bhakti, they revel in worshipping that image of the Lord, that Shuddha Sattva Guna of the Lord, the idol, and that is the self. Blessed people focus on that. And it is important to note that bhakti is not just reveling in that idol of the Lord or in the form of the Lord. Bhakti is that then using that form of that bhakti and then reveling in our own Atma Swarupam, as I said in the first slogam. So bhakti, the true bhakti is therefore, definitely we need to first start with worshipping the image of the Lord, and we have to seek the Bhagavan's blessing, and with that level of bhakti we have to then use that bhakti to revel in our own inner self. That is our own Atma Swarupam, which requires knowledge also, right? So that is the Nirguna form of Bhagavan. So there is Saguna form, which is the idol of Guruvayoorappan, which is also Krishna, Sri Krishna. That is the Saguna form of Bhagavan. We have to connect to that Saguna form, then transcend to the Nirguna form, which is our own Atma Swarupa, the self, the supreme consciousness in us. And that is true bhakti. So I think we will stop it here. And then we can take up questions, and we'll start the next sloga in the next session, if that's good.
Thank you. Just want to say it was divine and peaceful and a meaningful session. We are truly blessed to have you both. With that said, the Q&A session will be open now. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. Thank you.
If anyone have questions, please feel free to unmute